Welcome to Thought for Thursdays. It's great to see you again in the middle of another busy week, and it's been an interesting week because in my part of the world anyway, this is when the children go back to school. And I don't know about you, but I've seen children on the streets that have got clothes that are obviously really looking impressive, brand new blazers because they're starting at secondary school, year sevens in clothes that are obviously too big for them. The sleeves extend beyond their hands and the trousers crumple up around their ankles. And and I know what it's like. I remember you'd start school not aware of how much you're going to grow, thinking that, well, I'll never fit these things. But by the time you get to the end of the year, the sleeves are halfway up your arms. The looks as if your trousers are falling out with your shoes because they're no longer talking to each other. There's a big gap. And you think, how did that happen? Well, it's the consequence of growth. But it did remind me of a Bible story where David, and we all know this story, is coming up against Goliath. And Saul is so impressed with this young man's zeal that he, the king, says, you've got to wear my armor. So he puts his breastplate on him, his helmet, gives him his sword. And they didn't fit. I mean, come on, this looked like a year seven in giant's clothing because Saul stood head and shoulders above everyone else in Israel. He was tall in stature, but not great in enthusiasm when it came to the battlefield. But there's David, and he's put these things on and he tries to walk in them. Now, I think if that had been me, I would have said, these things are too big. But that's not what David said. Now, I've been tempted to say very often things are too big. I feel that at times, maybe I'm not being quite as enthusiastic for big assignments. And I think sometimes God's put me in situations, and although he says he won't test us beyond that which we're able to endure, I think, God, your idea of what I can endure is certainly different from mine. But where I would end up complaining that the assignment's too big, it wasn't the size that David commented on. He didn't say, oh, these things are too big. He said, I haven't tested them. And as he just did a little trial walk there in Saul's tent, that was all he could think of. I haven't tested these things. So how can I go into battle with things that I haven't tested? And for me, that is such a big lesson. So often we want to dress to impress. But actually, what God is saying to us, I'm more interested in you being effective than being impressive. And so we've got to have that same mindset as David. We've got to have a back to school mentality that says, I want to test things. I want to be that person who is evidence-based in my learning. I've checked it out. And if we do that, we can go into the battle with greater confidence, even if all we've got is a sling and a few stones. But if we've tested, then that makes the difference. So when the children are going back to school, let us go back to school as well and say, Lord, my heart's open. I want to learn from you. I want to take on what you give me. I want to test it. I want to prove myself worthy for the battlefield, and for whatever you send and for whatever I come up against, I want to be prepared. So as you think about going back to school, I just encourage you to just have those young children on your heart too, so that you can be praying for them, because they're finding challenges too. But I look forward to seeing you again next week, and that'd be great. I want you to have a really good week. If you want any of my materials, go to hughosgood.com, and I look forward to seeing you again and wish you every blessing.